Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. What a great episode of NXT this was. We got 2 championship matches, 2 very interesting vignettes, and we just continue the build to NXT TakeOver London. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
I said this to you when this episode ended before we started recording, so I'm just going to kind of reiterate it again to get it on record. I think this was my favorite non-live special episode of NXT this year.
It was so good, dude. I love the way that everything built. Even the main event championship match, the NXT Women's Championship match, I thought there was such ingenuity in it in terms of how it was booked that I really appreciated it. So I really can't wait to talk about this whole show with you. Is there anything else you want to say, or can we dive right into it?
Yeah, no, this honestly felt like a miniature live special.
Right. I would agree with that.
Which is strange because it wasn't even live. Like, I could say that if it was like an hour-long live special, and then it would be like an actual half live special, but this wasn't live. It was just a regular episode of NXT. It just felt like a really big deal.
Yeah, it really did. I completely agree with what you're saying. There was a different atmosphere about it tonight with really almost like every match and really every segment. Again, yeah. I often use the term productive.
Well, there were only 3 matches tonight.
Right. So, yeah, I really loved like everything this NXT accomplished tonight. So with that said, let's get right into the first segment. Heat of the night. I've got 0 heats of the night tonight, 0 nitpicks. What about you, Ashton?
No, I don't have any either. I think that everything that I could have potentially had a heat of the night with tonight, they handled it perfectly.
They really did. Yeah, and again, like, I can't even say that enough about, like, the main event championship match, because I had a lot of reservations about that, but I feel like they handled that with such brilliance. So, with that said, let us roll right on through to our NXT review, and we open up with Michael Cole in the ring, a table between him there, and he pretty much gives the rundown that at NXT TakeOver London has been confirmed. Balor versus Joe will happen, and this is the official contract signing. And he's getting ready to make the introductions, but Balor doesn't even bother to wait. He comes down to the ring. He takes the microphone. He talks about how Joe taught him something, very important, that friendship and trust in this business is a rarity. And he wants, he's going to show Joe why he is the champion in NXT TakeOver London. He's going to shove his foot down Joe's throat.
No, John. He's going to shove his foot down Joe's throat.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to say it the way Finn said it, right?
Exactly. Quite right. But Michael Cole, in turn, says, well, I was actually going to announce Joe first, which hilariously enough got some boos. And so...
of course it got boos. I mean, between the fact that he was going to feature the bad guy or the fact that he's Michael Cole...
Exactly, yeah, just everything working against him there. But he calls Joe like one of the best international superstars, in the world, introduces him, and then Joe handles this whole thing like a boss. Like, I'm sitting here, and I think you were too, Ash. I never like to speak for you, but I can assume both of us were just waiting for like this 5 to 10 minute long verbal exchange between 2 guys. Then they put pen to paper, and not that that's bad, but you've seen it a million times. Joe's like, screw that. He comes down to the ring, doesn't even look Balor in the face, and Balor really emphasizes this point to his credit, because he gets on, he picks up the mic and he says, look at me in the eye, Joe, look me in the eyes, and Joe signs the contract, doesn't look at Balor, doesn't look at the eye, doesn't look at nothing, tosses the pen, and walks right out after he signed it. Even Cole's like, okay. So nobody expected Joe to just up and leave. I love how Joe handled this, bro.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was amazing. And I even said to you, this might be my favorite WWE-related contract signing of all time because of how completely opposite it was to every other contract signing in history. I've never seen a contract signing that didn't involve long, drawn-out promos or a table flip or just a massive, super intense physical altercation. And the contract signing itself was over in less than 5 minutes.
And I love that too, because even when you look at what happened after what I'll call the post-signature aspect, when both guys affixed their signatures to the contract, like it all happened. The pacing of this was perfect.
It
Because
was.
I feel like most main roster contract signings, they try and make it seem like this big deal and this big production. Not NXT. NXT keeps the pieces moving, and they realize, hey, we've got an hour. Let's just maximize our minutes with everything. And these guys, with the short time that they made of it, had the best contract signing I think you and I both have ever seen. Balor, he signs the contract because he's just frustrated he didn't get a piece of Joe. And then when he's walking up the ramp, he's celebrating, but then Joe blindsides him, gets him back into the ring. Now, what I liked is Balor did get a little bit of offense. He got a drop kick in, and he was getting some fists in on Joe, but Joe, once again, able to turn the tide and get the coquina clutch locked in on Balor, choked his ass out to the point where Balor is drooling on himself, and then Joe just poses over the lifeless body of the champion. I really like that because even when Balor brings the fight to Joe, it shows Joe at this moment in time really being insurmountable for the champion.
Yeah.
I loved everything about this, dude.
It was really well done, and I think the best part about it was just how easy it was for Joe to get the upper hand in their brawl. Because
yes.
I mean, like, sure, he's blindsided Finn, but they were pretty much back to even ground once they got in the ring. Finn got a drop kick off, and they were kind of back to being evenly matched. But in an instant, Joe just flips him around and locks in that coquina clutch. And when he gets that locked in and his legs wrapped around you, it's over. Nobody has found a way to counter that yet.
It's amazing, Joe's work right now. I feel like he has been so on point. And you know what? It's such a relief, too, to see Joe doing the work that he's doing, because I'll be honest, ever since Kevin Owens left and he went to the main roster, I'm thinking, man, are we ever really going to have like that really great vicious heel again? Like, who's going to fill that void? And I think Joe, in his own way, in his own sense, forging his own path, has really done well in being that heel. So I'm immensely impressed with his work. And Balor is looking, I mean, this is the most vulnerable to me he's ever looked as a babyface. So I can't wait for TakeOver London.
Yeah. TakeOver London is shaping up to be an incredibly well-built show, and especially because it's still like 3 weeks away. It's not like it's happening next week, which, I mean, based on this show, it could happen next week and it would feel appropriately built to. They have 3 more weeks to build to it.
I love it. So with that said, is there anything else you want to say about the contract signing segment?
I just loved it. No, nothing really to add.
All right, let's move on. What was our next segment?
Our next segment was, not really a segment. We just got the announcement that Dana Brooke versus Asuka was going to be happening tonight, as well as Bayley versus Eva Marie. So just kind of catching us up on everything that was supposed to happen tonight. And then we had our first match of the night, Vaudevillains versus the Mechanics, a return match for the tag titles. And English and Gotch were wearing the same exact gear that they wore in Brooklyn, which I thought was a really nice touch, because to me, like, whenever you see a team that has like an altering wardrobe and they wear something like an iconic certain something to a match, you've got to try and imagine that there's a reason behind that. So to me, like, the Vaudevillains wearing the same gear that they wore to Brooklyn tells me that they were trying to recapture the magic that they had when they first won the titles to try and regain them tonight.
Yeah, I love that you made that observation when we were talking. And me, I had my suspicions because in the first championship bout anyway, because really this is the third time that these two teams have faced each other, but in the first championship bout, like, they picked English's leg apart and he tapped out. So I thought, he could still be coming in with like a lingering bad leg, and Mechanics would pick Aiden English apart, and they would lose again, and Gotch would get fed up and turn on him. Now, even though that's not exactly what happened, it doesn't take away from the fact that this is a fun match. I enjoyed this. In fact, I'd say of the two championship matches, I actually preferred this one, particularly because the final few minutes were very exciting. I love the near falls they pulled off here. I loved how certain sequences kind of made you catch your breath, like, who's going to get the upper hand in this exchange? I love, too, again, going back to those final few minutes, Mechanics tried going for the Shatter Machine on Gotch, But Aiden English runs in, he stops it, he gets in there, he breaks it up,
Yeah.
and then Vaudevillains try and come in, and it seems like they're gonna hit the Whirling Dervish, which I'm like, oh man, but you have Dash Wilder, he pulls Simon Gotch out of the ring, and Scott Dawson moves out of the way of Aiden's neck breaker. And then they isolate Aiden English. They get the Shatter Machine on English, and English gets pinned. So really, again, a great back and forth tag team title matchup. And here, what I'm thinking, okay, English is eating the pin. This is the second time now that he's really fallen to these guys on behalf of his team. Gotch won't be happy. But we didn't get that. But we did get a surprise, the return of Enzo and Cass and Ashton. This was beautifully done here.
I love the intensity that these guys came back with.
Me too.
You never see them like that. They're always happy-go-lucky. They're always smiling. They're always... I mean, yeah, like they put their intense faces on to be like, SAWFT, yeah, like you guys suck and that kind of stuff. But it always comes off as more comedic than serious. This felt serious. This felt like it felt like it should have felt. It felt like one of them got injured and they were coming back for revenge. That's exactly what this felt like.
Which is exactly what it should have felt like. You know, I love Enzo and Cass to death, and I know I'm only a small drop in the bucket of people that do love this team.
You know, it's so funny, though, John, that we're saying, like, if it felt like it should have felt like, and that's how it should have felt like, and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the fact that it felt an appropriate way compared to what you would expect it to feel like, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. We shouldn't be talking about it like it's this big deal, because like in any other television show, if you don't write your characters to react the way that actual people would react, you're a bad show. And yet it all comes back to our kind of almost like mental scarring from WWE, because we just had an example where Paige went after Charlotte's family and got very personal, and then we had a match that actually was a wrestling match as opposed to a fight.
Right.
So, you know, people reacting in ways that they should react as people, or that you would expect an actual person to react, and acting like they're human beings and that kind of stuff isn't a given in the WWE. But in NXT, they're getting it right, so we need to heap praise on them for that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's an excellent point. And again, like, this was the appropriate reaction. You're talking about a team in the mechanics that did to Colin Cassidy. They tried to take away his livelihood. Now, you know, like, that's a big deal. I'm not going to expect Colin Cassidy to come out and be spitting lines, or Enzo to, like, come up with a rhyme about how the mechanics suck or how goofy they are, because they are dangerous. And here's the thing, too. I think by Enzo and Cass coming at them seriously, in a weird roundabout way, that makes the champions look credible. Because here Enzo and Cass always joke with everybody, but not with these guys, because they know how dangerous they can be, and they want to put a hurting on them.
Yep.
And to me, this creates even more intrigue, because I think I guess I'll have to alter my plans a little bit, because here I thought that the Enzo and Cass feud would kind of wait a little bit, but since the return has already happened, I'm guessing we'll do mechanics. Enzo and Cass take over London, which keeps Jordan and Gable in the background to continue to build up their credibility, which I have no qualms with whatsoever. And then that only makes the anticipation for that match, presumably the mechanics versus Jordan and Gable, that much more anticipated when the time comes. So I actually think this works out quite nicely. I'm quite pleased.
I just love that we have an example of sort of a lighthearted gimmick that had too many buttons pushed, and now they're serious. And I don't think that they're going to be serious as like a permanent thing, but they're serious for the right situation in this case. And
yes,
and I love that. Like, if you think about it, they were at the top of the tag team mountain, right? They were fresh off of a tag title loss. And they were getting back in the tag title picture. They were getting ready to face the mechanics, where if they would have won, they probably would have become the number one contenders. But because of what the mechanics did to Cass, they went on to win the titles.
Right.
Think about that. The fact that these guys have been chasing the titles for years now. They haven't ever really come close until just recently. They were just about to get another shot. And then another team comes in injures one half of them as a team and then takes the titles for themselves.
That's crazy. Yeah, I never really thought about it in that way. I think that's a great added element to this thing. The idea that Enzo and Cass were so close, and yet the mechanics kind of snuff them out for their own opportunity, which
Yeah.
they took all the way, because now they've beaten the Vaudevillains 3 times now.
Yeah.
So, I really like that contrast, dude. That's an excellent point.
Yeah,
But yeah, man.
that's what has really gotten me interested in this, because this feels like an Attitude Era storyline. And I don't mean that because, like, oh, the Attitude Era had, like, this, like, tits and ass and violence and language and shit like that. I'm talking about just reality. Like, the biggest thing in the Attitude Era was they wanted to try to change their storyline so that they weren't so overly simple, make them more realistic, make them more mature, make them more something that you might actually see. And an example of somebody maybe getting sick or having some kind of a psychological breakdown due to, like, a loss in the family or something like that at their job, and somebody else getting promoted in the meantime, that's something that people can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how often do we see pro athletes or even people at the comedy now? Because, you talk about reality and stuff. They're doing really good. They're killing it at work. They come down with something and somebody else, opportunistic, picks the bones and they take it from themselves. That's just the nature of life.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that's a great observation, because that's exactly what the mechanics have done to Enzo and Cass, which I think adds.
And the worst part about it is that it's not just that they came down with something, it's that the mechanics did it to them.
Exactly.
It's sabotage.
And really, if you think about it, it's almost like this repugnance with, like, the nature of things in itself, because here are these guys in the mechanics that incur this injury upon Cass, and fortune smiles upon the mechanics because now they're tag team champions.
Yeah.
So, if you're the baby faces, you've just got to be so fed up and thinking, all right, fine. You want to play that way? We can play that way. And they come at the mechanics tonight and put a hurting on them. And that's the thing. Like, I almost wish, like, we'd have, like, a little stipulation or something for their tag title match at London, because just a standard tag match, knowing that Cass probably wants to rip these guys apart, and Enzo for that matter, I don't know if they're going to be able to contain themselves, but
I don't know. I think I like that it's just going to be, and hopefully, this is us talking in really hopeful, because we don't look at spoilers, we don't know what's planned, but I hope that it is just a regular tag team match, because I feel like that benefits Enzo and Cass more, because I feel like if you would make it like a tornado tag, that's the mechanics wheelhouse, man. Then they can double team one guy, isolate him, get him out of the picture, then go back and work the other guy, and it's all legal. Whereas in a traditional tag match, you have rules in place to prove who the better tag team really is.
And can I just say, too, as like a final note, because I feel like I've talked about, in descending order, Vaudevillains, Enzo and Cass, but let's just real quick say how great I feel like the mechanics already have been as tag champ. It just feels right seeing them right now.
They are loathsome.
They are. I think between just their look, how they carry
their attitudes.
Themselves.
Yeah, you said how they carry themselves. I would say their attitude is the same thing, but that is huge.
And yet the best part is that they're so good at what they do. They're not even heels that are like, oh, they found a way out the back door kind of thing. No, they legitimately pick you apart, and they're good at what they do. I'm telling you, I think the mechanics, I'm just so happy that they're tag team champions, because I really think they personify what's best about the NXT tag team division right now, and that's just talented individuals like this coming together and really bringing tag team wrestling back to the forefront. I can't wait for their title defense, again, presumably against Enzo and Cass at TakeOver London, which is going to be a huge crowd, and I personally can't wait to hear the pop for Enzo and Cass. Good God.
Yeah.
Like, this has the makings to be a great, probably one of the best NXT tag team title matches since that championship's inception. So,
and that's actually another thing that I noticed tonight. The Vaudevillains, when they came out, and they had, I don't think he has a character name, but it was Ryan Smiley Katz. The guy, he actually, for those of you that are at all familiar with Wrestling Society X, he was actually the ring announcer there. Everyone hated him. But he's a former AfterBuzz TV host. He used to review Raw and NXT before he got a job with NXT. And when he comes out and he does that, gather around everyone, and that whole thing with the big old megaphone and stuff, the crowd was saying that along with him.
Yeah, which you picked up on, and I thought that was so cool. So, and you know what? Let me just say this too, as like an aside. I'm so relieved that I was wrong about my thought, because this isn't the first time I've expected the Vaudevillains to break up. I had similar feelings last year. I do feel like they probably never will break up. And they may even go to the main roster together. I don't really know how that'll work, but I mean, clearly the NXT crowd, they love these guys and they just love everything about the act. So I'm glad to see them sticking together. And yeah, I already said, like, I think it was like 2 TWitWows ago, I said the NXT tag team division is currently my favorite division right now. And considering how amazing the women are, that's really saying a lot. So good stuff.
I mean,
man.
it's safe to say the women have taken quite a hit over the last few months with the losses that they've suffered to the main roster.
That is true. Yeah, that is true.
So I don't think that saying that the tag division is stronger than the women's division in NXT is really that much of a terrible thing to say at this point.
Right. All right, man. Well, you got anything else you want to say about this tag title match and the subsequent post-match segment?
Well, let's move on. Eva Marie got interviewed by Tom Phillips, I believe it was, in William Regal's office, which Phillips even kind of pointed out. He said something about, why are we in Regal's office? And she said something about how she needed a bigger area for her to be in. Did she really give a better reason than that? I feel like that was all she really said.
No, that was her justification for it.
And that Regal would be fine with it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love that they went full on conspiracy mode tonight too, and we'll talk about it more in the main event, but I just love how far they took it.
I did too. And that's what I was kind of alluding to, in our intro when I was just talking about how I loved how they turned all of her hate into something that they could really use to create an atmosphere for the main event. But again, we'll get more into that for the main event segment. Yeah. So, Tom Phillips is pretty much like, he asks her, you said that this championship match was inevitable. Why isn't it inevitable? And Eva pretty much goes on to say, well, I've beaten superstar after superstar. It's time for a woman to hold the NXT Women's Championship. She called Bayley a swell girl, which kind of made me chuckle a little.
Yeah, that was goofy.
And
she's a swell girl and all.
She said, I'm thankful for the support of the WWE Universe. Then the camera pans over to the gifts from Total Divas. Thanks, Total Divas. And then she says, but the best thing is friendship. And she then introduces Nia Jax. First, Nia Jax, like, oh, what's up, Queen? And, Nia Jax gives her a gift. And she says, Tom, nothing beats friendship. And that's pretty much that segment. So, yeah, I mean, I really love.
Well, she introduced Nia as her friend.
And that's what I said. Like, yeah, she introduced Nia as her friend. Okay, yeah. And she said, oh, hi, Queen. And then Nia gave her a gift. Yep. And then, yeah, she said, nothing beats friendship, Tom. So,
yeah, it was. Really, it was awkward in a way that only Eva Marie can pull off, I think.
Exactly.
And I pull off, I mean that exclusively as in, I can't imagine anyone being as awkward as her on the mic kind of way.
Right.
Not in a cute Emma way where it's like a good thing that she pulls it off.
Right. And I do love NXT's self-awareness about Eva Marie and the response to her, and you could clearly see that in this promo here. So really, for all that, for the atmosphere more than the actual person and what she said, I feel like this is a solid segment. So yeah, I have no complaints here.
Yeah, absolutely. So up next, we had a little bit of a recap of our whole feud that we've had between Dana Brooke and Asuka. And did they talk to Dana Brooke too?
No, they just showed.
It was just a recap of Dana's promo. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a recap. So we know that that's coming up next. But before we actually get to that match, or what was supposed to be that match, we get an Elias Sampson vignette.
This is all you, brother. What did you think about it?
Oh, I hope that whatever song he was singing in his vignette was his new theme song.
That would be great. Yeah, he really should do the vocals for his own theme. I think it's only appropriate.
Yeah.
Given, the gimmick.
I mean, he doesn't have to. If they could even do it where they get an actual professional vocalist to do it, and then they just make it seem like it's him, just to give him that shitty heel heat.
That could work. So you still think though that this is a heel gimmick, and then he's
without a doubt, he's so smug. He's going to be busting guitars over people's heads, guaranteed.
hopefully he does it better than Jeff Jarrett did it. But
I mean, the difference between him and Jarrett is if he does it, he'll actually get over with it.
ooh, shots fired. Yeah, I really don't have much to say. Like Elias Sampson, you are far more excited about him as a prospect than I am, and that's really
That's
nothing
because
against.
he's to me like, okay, anytime I see a prospect in WWE, I never get excited based on their actual ability. I only ever get excited based on whether I think WWE is going to push them or not. And I base that on their look, really, is what it comes down to. Their look, if they have like a natural exuding charisma, really just very shallow things that the WWE picks and chooses between people and what they're going to push and what they're not going to push. And Elias Sampson has a great look. He's a bigger guy. To me, like we even said it when they were in the tag team matches back when it was him and Mike Rawless, I think it was, when they were doing their jobber matches. I pointed out that Elias Sampson looks like a better built version of Damian Sandow.
Yeah, you have made that point to me, and I think again, on commentaries that we've done, and I agree. I think for me, what I liked about it, because again, I think I'll be on the Elias Sampson train when I have this exposure to him. Apparently, he's going to get like relaunched, into the public eye, which should be interesting. But just looking at the vignette in itself, I liked it because it was different. I
Yeah.
liked like the monochrome color, like the black and white, kind of got that grayish feel.
You
He's
know what it
playing the.
reminded me of?
What's that?
Like about halfway into this vignette, I immediately, well, not immediately because it was halfway into it, but I had this overwhelming thought, oh my God, they're turning him into Johnny Cash.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked everything they did here between like the coloration and just how he's singing it, and just his voice was great here, and the guitar strumming, like it had a nice somber feel to it, and it really made you wonder like what's going to come. And it's funny because NXT has certain gimmicks right now. You look at Ty Dillinger with the Perfect 10 gimmick, Elias Sampson with this gimmick. I forget another guy that I'm trying to think of, so I'll gloss over him. But there are certain people that are really coming together. Not Cal Bishop. I can't remember the guy's name, but there are
Well,
certain
not
gimmicks.
Solomon Crow anymore. He's gone.
Not Solomon Crow anymore. He got released. But yeah, it
Who
just
else am I
got
trying to think of? I'm trying to think of
whoever
who else there is.
that tag team that broke up recently. I'm trying to think.
Oh, Sawyer Fulton.
Sawyer Fulton. Yeah, thank you, Ashton. Jeez, that was gonna bother me the rest of the night. You look at gimmicks like
He
that.
doesn't really have a gimmick though. He just has skunk hair.
Yeah, not really anything yet. And we haven't. He hasn't even really made a break from his tag partner, who's also like blanking out right now. But like you have all those types of guys, those undercard guys that I'm waiting to see really break through. And I'm hoping with
Yeah.
a vignette like this, I'm really hoping Elias can make the most of it, because honestly, I'm already. I don't say this to be like mean spirited or look at me teasing Ashton, but I am disappointed that Ty Dillinger hasn't gotten more exposure by now.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we actually get something with Elias Sampson.
They would be an amazing team.
Yeah, I agree. I would actually like to see that team. And yeah, I think that could work.
They would also lose every match.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
but yeah, I agree with you. I love, and this was something I was thinking of while you were talking. I love how well NXT gives personality to everyone.
Yes, dude. Like, because Elias Sampson here was a guy that was really just in like random tag team matches for a little bit.
He was a jobber. Let's not sugarcoat it.
Yeah, he was a jobber. And yet that's what I love about the Performance Center, because they keep working with these guys, in the spirit of Dusty Rhodes, because they always just say like Dusty used to love working with these broken toys and trying to figure out like what works best for each person. And that spirit still continues, in the Performance Center, because they take a guy like Elias Sampson and they say, "Okay, what can we do with you?" And they give him kind of like this drifter gimmick with this guitar.
Yeah.
And it's a
Who else was a jobber at one point?
Who's that?
Sasha Banks.
Sasha Banks. Jobber before that, Aiden English. Like it's amazing.
Wesley Blake.
Yeah, Wesley Blake, exactly.
People forgot that his first name was Wesley, but I remember. I always remember.
Pepperidge Farm remembers, but yeah, I love it.
A Pepper Ridge.
Yeah, I just love that they do it with these kinds of gimmicks, and just knowing that Elias Sampson has got this because it's so different too. He's got such a distinct look.
Well, that's kind of the thing, is that I feel like everybody really, like I was saying, like they give personality to everybody. They make everybody stand out in some way or another.
Yeah,
It's
it's amazing.
amazing. And no, Raw doesn't even try. Like with Raw, if you want personality, you need to make it shine through all the shit that they put you through.
Exactly.
Like Raw is just in a constant state of pushing everyone down, and a few people just happen to slip through the cracks and make their way to the top, or at least above where they're supposed to be. New Day, I'm looking at you. And then NXT is trying to lift everyone up.
I love it too because don't get me wrong. I mean, you and I listened to the Table for Three recently with Barrett, Sheamus, and Regal. You know, Kings of the Ring.
The three worst King of the Rings ever.
William Regal's words, not ours, but I wouldn't be inclined to disagree.
Yeah.
And let me just say this as a side note. I could listen to William Regal talk about the business all day, guys. One of the best minds, I think, that really hasn't gotten bitter or anything like that with the passage of time. And
I want William Regal to explain to me why Paige insists on locking Becky Lynch or Charlotte or whoever it is in the PTO on the announce table.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't hurt anymore, but I think William Regal could convince me that it might.
I think William Regal could convince me of anything.
Yeah.
He could probably convince me that I'm not like a closet Santina Morella fan, for God's sake. It's like, no, John, you're really a fan of him. No, William, that's not true. 15 minutes later, oh, God, how could I have been so blind? But,
See, what you really need to understand is that when he pulls out the Cobra...
Exactly. But what he said was, and the point I wanted to make, he said that, to make it in WWE, you've got to be willing to take whatever they give you and make it work. Well, that's certainly true, and I'm not going to dispute that point, because there are times that you're going to have to shovel shit. It's the way life is. It doesn't mean that you can't work with these people and find what could potentially speak to them. And I feel like NXT does take that time.
Yep.
I mean, ask anybody, ask Stone Cold, The Rock, like the people that really freaking made it in this business, and they say the best characters are the ones that are just extensions of your personality. I wouldn't be surprised if Elias Sampson said, yeah, this isn't too distinct from how I actually am in some ways. I just crank the volume up. Yep. And yeah, I really
know that's how Enzo is. We've seen him in interviews, not even in like kayfabe or anything, and he's just like that.
And look at how over Enzo and Cass are, though.
Well, and I mean, I hate to kind of go there as a good example, but I mean, really, Mojo Rawley is another one. We just saw him on Breaking Ground the other night, and he is 100% as obnoxious as his on-screen character.
And there you go. I mean, is it like a foolproof formula? Mojo Rawley clearly proves not, but 9 times out of 10 ain't bad. But yeah, I hope
that's what I was trying to say, though, is that like Raw pushes people down and some people slip through the cracks and make it. NXT brings people up and some people slip through the cracks and don't. Mojo and ZZ looking at you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, hopefully Elias can really take the ball and run with it. I am intrigued about where it goes from here, and I am going to say tentatively, if at all, because again, I really thought we'd see Ty Dillinger somewhere by now. Hopefully Elias Sampson can break the mold and really do something.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we do get the Asuka versus Dana Brooke supposed match. I say supposed because Asuka comes out and then Dana Brooke comes out, but the no match happens because Dana really just stalls. She talks to Asuka for a while, and then Emma, next thing you know, comes up from behind and attacks Asuka, locks her. Well, actually, not right away, because Asuka kicks her right in the face. Like, that looked devastating. That roundhouse kick, though. But then Dana starts doing a little bit more distracting, and then Emma grabs her by the legs and eventually ends up locking in the Emma lock, and it looked brutal.
It did. I'll be honest, I think I was expecting a little bit more from this beatdown because it's Asuka. Like, you want to make sure she's dead. Like, I was thinking that Emma would do, like, the curb stomp to precede it because I really love that addition to her repertoire. And I even thought Dana would want to come in and get something as though she got her ass whooped to take over Respect. But it was fine for what it was. And really, again, the best part is, and probably the most off-putting part, unless you're into that sort of thing, is that, when Asuka gets up, she's, like, smiling and, like, laying her finger, like, tasting the beatdown, and I'm thinking, okay, she must have kind of liked it. I'm just going to back away slowly, and I'm never going to think about this again. So, yeah, hopefully Dana and Emma really enjoyed themselves, because I doubt that that's going to last much longer.
So, John, I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Did you have any part in the planning of this trap?
Don't you even ask me that question, because I don't even know if Asuka listens to this shit. I had no knowledge, and none of you could prove it. All right? I want nothing to do with that crazy ass bitch. Friggin' smiling after a beatdown. What the hell is that? Yeah, I had no knowledge. No knowledge.
Okay.
But
For the
yeah.
record.
Both on and off the record, I had no damn knowledge. Nobody could prove it. So yeah, man. I mean, I enjoyed this. I think Emma and Asuka is gonna be really, if we get the two women's matches that I'm anticipating at Takeover London, obviously this being one of them, women's championship match, being another, and I think you know what I'm thinking about with that one. It could really be a great card for the women in terms of like how they represent, and it just gets me all kinds of excited. Like they're gonna kill it.
I had a concern where like, are they gonna do Asuka versus Dana again at the next live special? But the way that they handled this really did make it seem like no, they're going straight for Asuka Emma, and that match might be a show stealer.
Yeah, I mean, it really couldn't have come at a perfect time because Emma. I'm not saying she's done it now. I would say she's done this like a few months ago. She's really perfected this heel persona. Her heel work has been really impeccable to me.
And plus, she's awesome in the ring, and obviously,
Yeah,
obviously Asuka is too. It's frickin' Asuka.
yeah. I mean,
it's
yeah.
frickin' Kana. I almost said, but yeah, she's awesome in the ring, and really like. If you think about it too, every other NXT live special, the show stealer is typically the women's championship match. But if we get Nia Jax involved in that match, that's not really going to be the show stealer type of match. And that's not to say it's going to be a bad match, but typically your show stealers are kind of wrestling clinics, and that's definitely not going to be that. But this could be.
Exactly. I feel like with the potential Nia Jax NXT Women's Championship match, you have a great storyline based match, like a story based matchup. In terms of in ring psychology and everything else. But with Emma and Asuka,
right,
it's just gonna be like you said, that in ring clinic. So yeah, I mean the women have a chance to do two great matches, albeit in two completely different ways at Takeover London. I'm really excited for them right now.
Absolutely. So then after that whole segment happens, we get a Tom Phillips interview yet again, but this time with the champion, with Bayley. I think this was, how do I put this? This is the meanest Bayley's ever been, but it was completely deserved by the other party.
Yeah.
Because she just comes right out and says, there's one thing that you're not taking into account, and that's that I'm a wrestler and Eva Marie isn't. Like, what? Please apply cold water to that burn. I'll red everything. Eva's skin is red right now because she just got walked through fire.
Oh, snap. Yeah, who would have thought that something so adorable could have such claws, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, she straight up says it. But again, that was what I was really referring to again when I talk about the ingenuity of how this match was built in one night. Like, they took advantage of everything.
And you're right, it really was all in one night, because like last week it got dropped on us, boom, Eva Marie's challenging for the title, and they spent the entire night tonight. Like, I felt like in between every major other occurrence we had something involving Eva and or Bayley.
Yes, yeah. And again, like, I have even more to say when we get to the main event segment. I'm actually kind of excited to want to talk about this with you now.
Yeah.
But Bayley, just pretty much saying, I beat Sasha Banks, and tonight I'm going to show once again why I'm NXT Women's Champion. And then Tom, in probably the most fulfilling moment of his life, with how often he gets shit on the job, he actually got to share a high five with Bayley. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because like they did this great job of building this matchup as NXT versus the corporate machine.
Yes.
And like Tom Phillips, I guess, is like, yeah, you stand up for NXT, Bayley. I'm on your side. And I love that.
I love it too, dude. It was great.
Like, Tom Phillips felt like a freaking investigator in this thing too, because like the work that he did with Eva in Regal's office, like trying to get down to the bottom of like what the hell's going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, this seems a little weird.
Yeah.
A buddy moment he shares with Bayley was just adorable.
It was awesome. But then we get our second match of the night, Apollo Crews versus Jesse Sorensen. I think that the best thing that I took away from this match, two things actually. the number one thing, Apollo isn't smiling as much anymore, which means that his character has kind of gotten grounded, whereas before he was just on cloud nine and happy to be there.
Right.
And then the second thing is, I think it's worth noting that commentary actually acknowledged Jesse Sorensen as a bit of a deal.
Yeah, I like that too. To your first point, I was even gonna raise the point that I loved in Apollo's entrance. He wasn't smiling at all.
Yeah.
It's like he was so done with happy to be here. This place sucks. I got right to my dream. I'm gonna beat the shit out of somebody. So like, I loved it because I'd be the same way too. It's like, hey, Judge, shove it up your ass. And it's like, that should have been mine. The hell's wrong with you people having to be here? Yeah, screw that.
Yeah. It's like that soldier that goes to war and they're like, yeah, go to war, gonna kill bad guys, and then they witness their first death, and it's like, oh shit, this is not what I thought it was gonna be.
Or again, kind of bringing it back from that Enzo and Cass mechanics conversation we had earlier. You work so hard at your job. You're slaving away in the filing room. You're taking all the phone calls. And then you see somebody else get the promotion you got. And then you're just like, oh, screw the lot of you. So, yeah. I say all this, and Apollo Crews isn't even a heel. I want to make that clear.
That's what's just great about it, though. Like, I think Apollo and Enzo and Cass both had really good character progression tonight. And the funny thing is, said character progression was actually very similar between the two entities because, like, Enzo and Cass realized that they need to take their opponent seriously. Apollo realized that he needs to take this job a little more seriously.
Yeah, and I love it too, because he looked like, when he was walking out there, like, whoever is coming out after me, I'm going to punch them in the face. Like, I loved it, because to me, and this is what made Sami Zayn so great when he was on his babyface run, and he kept falling short, you start to get a little cheesed off after a while, like, okay, I'm really getting sick of this shit. I'm getting sick of failing time and time again, because it's human nature. And I love that Apollo Crews is actually in touch with human nature. And the thing is, like, when you look at the actual match, I wouldn't even, personally, maybe you disagree, I wouldn't say that Apollo necessarily brought any more aggression or this and that in the ring. It was still the same level of intensity and this and that. But just the idea that he cut the crap, that he wasn't smiling as much, and he's like, no, I'm gonna hurt a bitch. I like that. I really, really like that. And he won the matchup after that, and kind of swinging powerbomb that he, I think he first debuted against Tyler Breeze in that match, and I believe that was TakeOver Respect, I want to say.
Yeah.
So
no, that was Brooklyn.
Oh, that was Brooklyn.
No, you're right. Apollo, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because Brooklyn Breeze
was his debut. Yeah, Breeze went against Liger, and that was Apollo Crews' debut. So I take over respect. So and then he gets on the mic and he pretty much again reminds Baron Corbin, which I can't wait to talk about Baron Corbin here in a few seconds too. Said that you cost me my chance to be NXT champion. Let me tell you something. You may be the lone wolf, but when you get in the ring with me, when you get in the ring with Apollo Crews, I am gonna lay you out. And then that gets in.
No, he didn't even say lay you out. He said lay you down.
Yeah, lay you down.
Like, I honestly, that's my thing too, is that, like, I loved his delivery here, but I would have changed up what he said. I wouldn't have had him say, I will lay you down. If he wanted to keep it that succinct, I would have at least said, put you down.
I was hoping for the same. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it kind of hits.
Like, he could have taken that to another level, too. He would have been like, you call yourself the lone wolf, well, all I see is an angry puppy trying to bite his owner's hand and all that stuff. Like, I'm going to take you out behind the barn and put you down. That, like, get angry about it, but I guess they wanted to keep him a little bit more succinct, and I understand that. But even still, I would have just changed that one little word from lay to put.
And I completely agree, because I think when you get a bit more verbose and a bit more graphic,
it starts to feel heelish.
It does start to feel heelish, but I think when you're just like, Apollo, you may be the lone wolf, but come take over London, I'm gonna put you down. It's like, oh shit, I am not.
Because like people associate that phrase "put down."
Exactly.
They associate that phrase with like veterinarians putting animals down.
Exactly. I mean, Triple H, now granted, very different territory because he was a heel at the time, but that's the exact phrase he used with Batista, who was called the Animal.
Right.
So you've got like an animal-based thing. Yeah, put you down. And lay you down. I get what Apollo was trying to say, but it still kind of hits the ear wrong still, though.
That sounds like borderline romantic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna lay you down. But yeah, I can't even rail that much against Apollo because I feel like he's shown like a great improvement this
Yeah.
week. So great stuff.
All right, let's talk about Baron Corbin's rebuttal.
Oh my God, this is great.
Yeah, he says that Apollo is going to be a failure in the long run. He says he's gonna be remembered as that one guy that did that one thing one time, and that he's gonna be nothing more than the answer to a trivia question in the future. And he does say that at London, Apollo Nation falls.
I gotta tell you, man, I don't know if the wrestling gods have smiled upon me, but we may be on the cusp of having a more coherent Scott Steiner. I just love that. Like, he'll be nothing more than the answer to a trivia question. Like, what? How can you people hate Baron Corbin after this? That was amazing. Like,
It was.
that is next level trash talk there. Oh my God.
I feel like we've heard that line before in NXT for some reason.
Have we? You know,
I
you
feel
might.
like we have. I don't know.
We might have, but it's so funny, Ashton, because like the NXT Fallout promo that Corbin cut last week, pretty much saying like Apollo, you're a failure, and I'm just gonna destroy you because I'm the lone wolf. I saw like on Pletov and other places, people were saying, man, why is Corbin so boring, this and that. Even if you did feel that way, which I enjoyed Corbin's promo there, I don't see how you could hate this because I love the references Corbin made, and I loved how he brought it all back. It was a creative promo. I have to give him props. Probably one of the more entertaining aspects of the night for me in terms of actual talking and delivery. Yeah, Baron, he's good, man. I'm excited for this match to take over London.
Absolutely. So after this, we get introduced to Charles Robinson as the referee for Bayley and Eva Marie. And Greg, I don't remember his last name again, but Greg says that Charles Robinson was sent from corporate to ensure that there will be no controversy.
Ooh.
And then we get our match. Match number 3 of the night, the main event, Eva Marie versus Bayley for the NXT Women's Championship. Nia Jax comes out as with Eva as her sort of bodyguard slash manager slash valet, whatever you want to call her. She's out there to screw things up for Bayley is what it comes down to. And this is going to sound kind of weird because it was very distracting. And normally I hate distracting commentary, but my favorite part about this match was the commentary. And it was mostly Byron Saxton because we were experiencing this match through Byron's perspective.
Byron, I feel like, may go down as one of the more underrated commentators that the WWE has because I feel like when he's really with the right group and he plays off Corey Graves brilliantly, that duo is fantastic. Byron Saxton, particularly when he's with Corey Graves, really understands what it means to serve as the bridge between the viewing audience and the content before us. And yeah, I loved his commentary. He called BS on everything. Like, oh, you're telling me this is just for such and such. It's really all a screw job. And Corey Graves, man, he plays it straight so well as that heel. It's
Dude,
like, oh, yeah.
I absolutely see. Here's my thing. You know somebody's good at their job when they do their job well enough to give you enough perspective to try and give somebody else credit on their job. Because to me, Corey Graves tonight did such an amazing job at his role that he convinced me that he was one of the people, including like Charles Robinson and Nia Jax, et cetera, being sort of paid off by the quote unquote corporate machine to build up Eva Marie. So like he was like an insider. Like this is freaking Shield versus Hydra level shit right now. And Corey Graves like revealed himself as a Hydra agent.
Okay, first of all, that Marvel reference just for the freaking win. Second of all, yes, that was the best part of this main event for me, and I love, and see, this is the genius of NXT, and here's the thing, genius, of course, takes effort, which a lot of people would say Raw right now knows nothing about, because they took all the negatives of Eva Marie, and they accentuated them to the point where it becomes a positive, where you create this atmosphere for this NXT Women's Championship match. I mean, during introductions, the crowd was chanting, Eva wins, we riot, Eva wins, we riot. Like, you couldn't have more heat in that context, just a group of people being more against somebody than the NXT audience being against Eva Marie. And then when you have, like, again, as you said, this conspiracy, like, oh, they may not want Eva as champion, but corporate does.
And then I love, too, that Corey Graves even takes another step where he says about how, if Eva becomes champion, we get more eyes on the product and everybody makes more money.
Exactly. And I think this plays on a level, I mean, it was already, to be fair, but it goes even deeper, like on that internet fan level, because what's the one thing we commonly say? We always make a distinction between NXT and WWE, even though NXT is a part of the WWE. And I feel like they kind of played that up too, because when you're using words like corporate and NXT, it really does make it seem like two distinct entities at war. Yep. And I love that shit.
They did an amazing job with it. And the great thing about this really is that they went out of their way to acknowledge the internet, to acknowledge how much people know about the product, or at least what we think we know, the insider information that we think we get. They took that, they embraced it, and they turned it into a storyline that's easily digestible to casual viewers.
Yes.
So if you have no inside knowledge or know why in the blue hell this crowd is booing the shit out of this red girl so much, now you know, because she's getting this corporate push that the people don't want to see because they love Bayley and they want Bayley to be their representative.
Exactly. They told such a great story, just given all the deficiencies that at least the audience believed that they had, mainly in the working ability of Eva Marie. And they made it into a legitimately compelling NXT Women's Championship match. Commentary was on point. Even the work in ring, for all like the distractions and everything, that was on point. I enjoyed it. And ultimately, you have Bayley retain after an avalanche belly to Bayley, belly to belly off the top rope, gets the win. But, the night really doesn't end there for Bayley, because then Nia Jax lays her out.
And let's talk about Nia Jax and really the role that she played in this match, because really it looked like Bayley had this thing won, and then Nia pulled the ref out of the ring.
Yeah.
And this was the NXT ref, because to start, Charles Robinson was chilling out on a chair on the outside, and Corey Graves even went on his way to like calm Saxton down and be like, look, man, like, I know you have all these crazy conspiracy theories, but look, Charles Robinson isn't even in the ring. He's just here to supervise to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And to me, like, sure, obviously Corey Graves is kind of being a dick about it, but I feel like it actually works because we have had referee controversies in matches that Eva Marie was a part of.
Exactly. This worked on so many goddamn levels, man.
It did. Like, they've taken so many negatives and twist it all around to make it a good thing.
It's almost like Triple H is like watching numbers and be like, it's okay, guys. I know you hate her. We're going to make this work. I promise. And yeah, they really did. And Nia Jax, I loved how when she pulled the referee out too, it was a forceful pull out. I think she even chugged him a little bit on the, like, it showed her power. The poor guy had to be like hauled into the back. And
well, obviously not, because it was the same guy that ended up doing the final count.
That is true, yeah, because he ended up like coming back, after a little bit. But yeah, Nia Jax at the same time, when Bayley tried to go to the top rope the first time, grabbed Bayley's foot and like pulled her out forcefully. And then when she's trying to rally Eva, Bayley's able to come back and she's able to like plant her face on the apron, which Nia more or less recovers pretty quickly from. So I like that they kept her strong that way, but not quick enough to stop Bayley from getting the win. But then you have Nia Jax just laying Bayley out with those leg drops of hers and just holding the NXT Women's Championship, which, I love the image because Nia Jax is, is a behemoth of a woman. She's like a bigger woman, and that NXT Championship looks like one of those replica belts in her hands. I love it. I freaking love it. And she does another leg drop with the belt in her hand, and then she just kind of lays it on Bayley, and that's the image. Just Bayley laid out while Nia Jax walks up the ramp. That's how we go home. It's amazing, dude.
And another thing that I love too, just taking it a step further, go back to the very beginning of this show. Michael Cole shows up, explains, oh, William Regal couldn't be here because of a successful surgery. So like, oh yeah, Regal's not here tonight, but he'll be back and he's healthy and he had a good surgery and all that stuff. But then Cole, who is a very well established reputation as a corporate stooge, says William Regal wouldn't have this, but I'm here, so we're having this title match tonight.
Okay.
Did you catch that?
I didn't catch that. No, that's a great pickup.
Cole said at the very beginning of the show, Regal wouldn't want to do this like this, but he's not here, so I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Holy crap. They hit this one out of the park.
They
in terms
really
of telling
did.
a story.
And especially, too, because Bayley was able to overcome all of it.
I love, too, because two people I have to compliment for that. Bayley, because, hello, underdog babyface overcoming those odds, like, what a great pop. And then Corey Graves, though, immediately after she gets the win, oh, look at you, Saxton, you didn't have faith in our NXT Women's Champion. What a douche nozzle. I love Corey Graves.
He's great. He did an amazing job tonight. But again, Saxton, to me, was the star, because with him, it felt like we were experiencing this match through him. Like, all of the realizations that he was kind of like hammering out, like, oh, well, we all know why Nia Jax is here, and oh, Charles Robinson, and all this other stuff. Like, everything that he was thinking, we were thinking. Everything that he said, we wish we could have said.
Yeah. Byron Saxton and Corey Graves. I've loved this duo for months now, and I'd say this particular match was that just really their best work ever right now, until something, they do something even better down the road. I love this team, and they work so well with each other. And Rich Brennan, not to leave him out in the cold, he is the perfect middleman between the two personalities.
Did he even have any kind of a role in the main event? I feel like he just completely disappeared.
I didn't he do like just the general play-by-play stuff while Corey Graves and Saxton
that must have been what he was doing, because I didn't catch anything else. So he did an amazing job too, because that's another thing, is that with matches like this, commentary can add to it, but the worst thing commentary can do is take away from it. And Rich Brennan does everything in his power not to take away from the match.
Yeah, he really, with a personality like his, because he is the straight man, the play-by-play guy, he knew that, like, okay, I can afford my play-by-play, but I've got to blend into the background.
Yeah, and he did an amazing job of it.
I completely agree. Dude, really, this whole match, because it gets Eva's title match out of the way, and William Regal's policy, you lose one title match, you got to earn your way to another.
Yep.
So it gets her in the back of the line. Nia Jax remains strong, and she's still at the forefront. I really believe it's going to be Bayley, Nia Jax at TakeOver London. What an episode of NXT tonight.
Can we just point out 2 ref bumps in a women's match?
I know, right? And the thing is, if it wasn't,
including Charles Robinson,
little Nate, if it wasn't for the overarching story of the night, I probably would have groaned about 2 ref bumps, because I already kind of groan with the main roster when there's one, because it's like, oh, here it comes. But it was
the story
so
that they
perfect.
told.
Exactly, made it work to perfection. I thought this was great.
Yeah, it was so good. This was an amazing episode of NXT. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is my favorite non-live special episode of NXT of 2015 so far. And we're almost done with the year, so it might as well just be the best.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Because really, good luck topping it, right?
Exactly. With that said, anything else you want to say, or can we move on to our next segment?
Move on, brother.
High spots and low shots. Low shots going to be very straightforward this week. Eva Marie. I mean, you had all the advantages in the world. You had Nia Jax, you had corporate support, you even had your own referee that was making faster counts, which I like too. And still.
See, I didn't notice that. I was looking out for that, and I didn't feel like he was.
I felt like early on he was probably making like faster counts, because Bayley even confronted him what are you doing? And I remember like when Eva got in his face after Bayley kicked out of the sliced bread, which has been Eva's like kind of finisher.
Yeah.
And she's like 1, 2, 3. I saw Charles Robinson's mouth. I know. So he knew what his job was, and Bayley just wouldn't quit and be destroyed.
And I remember there was even one point when Eva was like, "Come on, Charles," like really personal with him, like just calling him by his first name, and like they're buddies now.
Exactly. So yeah, with all those advantages, still unable to capture gold. So Eva's got to be my low shot, because it's one thing to lose a championship match, but to have all that going for you and to lose, I think it's a bit of an extra kick.
Yeah. My low shot's going to be Finn Balor, because even though he cut a great promo. Joe got inside his head and then put him to sleep.
Completely agree. Balor is at a great disadvantage right now. Like I
That
said,
was such a power play by Joe too, because like Joe gets in the ring, signs the contract, and leaves, but the whole time Finn's yelling, "Look me in the eye, Joe! Look me in the eye!" and he never even blinks.
exactly.
That's
It's
some like mental Olympics right there, man.
yeah, I'm telling you, Balor has never looked more vulnerable to me than he does right now, and Joe has been such a masterful heel.
And it's going to be a big deal if Finn Balor wins this match. And I mean, obviously, a title change would be a big deal too. But Finn retaining, I think, would be the bigger deal because of how well they've built Joe as a threat.
Absolutely.
Like, how is Finn going to avoid, and if he can't avoid it, reverse the Coquina clutch?
Exactly. That's going to be a great hope spot at TakeOver London if there's any hope to be had at all, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Honorary high spot, Sami Zayn, who
Yes,
got
because
a
he's coming
return.
back.
Yeah, he got a return vignette tonight that
Yeah.
guys gave me goosebumps. Let me tell you something, folks. For all the complaining that I've done about WWE lately, particularly the main roster, when WWE does video packages, really nobody does them better. And when they do video packages like this, like the music was perfect, the voiceover with Sammy was perfect, just everything, like the feels though.
Yeah.
And I think really, and I don't mean to be morbid when I say this, right? But we always try and put a positive spin on things. That's what we do. I feel like this vignette came at a perfect time because you hear the music, you hear Sammy's voiceover, and you feel hopeful when you see everybody else dropping like flies or going off and doing their own thing, and you realize that Sammy's coming back, and the type of babyface that he is, it's almost poetic, because we're in such a bad state right now as WWE fans that to see that he's coming back, I don't know, just makes the heart swell with joy. So Sami Zayn is my honorary high spot. My actual high spot, though, is going to be the Mechanics, because hot damn, they have beaten the Vaudevillains 3 times. The Vaudevillains that, when you really think about it and you give it some consideration, were one of NXT's more protected tag teams. You know, when they were heels and then when they were babyfaces, you're talking about guys that really rarely ever lose. And even when they had their little losing streak, they bounced back. They won the NXT tag titles. Mechanics beat them 3 times. They've got their number, and despite the fact that rough waters lie ahead for the champions, they prevailed tonight, and that's really all that matters in the moment. So they are my high spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my high spot is, I'm just going to kind of take the easy route here. It's just going to be NXT as a whole, because you look at this entire show and there is a worthwhile high spot in every segment. Samoa Joe, the Mechanics, Enzo and Cass, Elias Sampson, Asuka, Emma, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, Bayley. Every segment on this show had at least one person or entity that was worth being a high spot. So rather than trying to pick one, since you decided that you had one that you wanted to pick, rather than me trying to figure out just one, I'm just going to say the whole show was amazing.
There you go, man. No
I don't think
arguments
I've
here.
ever done that before either, have I?
I don't think you have.
I know we've had an episode of Raw where the entire show was a low shot or a heat of the night or something like that, but I don't think we've ever had an entire show be a high spot before.
Absolutely. And I can't even blame you. You know, I wouldn't even call that the easy way out. I would just call that being sincere. This episode was amazing.
It was.
So, yeah, no fault there. But, hell, that's the best kind of punctuating remark. So, with that said, guys, this has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. Ashton, what question do you have for our subscribers this week?
What NXT TakeOver London match do you guys feel like you were looking the most forward to? We've got Corbin versus Crews, Joe versus Balor, most likely Bayley versus Nia, Asuka versus Emma, probably the Mechanics versus Enzo and Cass. Which match that is that is likely to happen are you guys looking the most forward to? Because for me personally, I think it's actually Emma versus Asuka.
I would have to agree with you at the moment. Yeah, that match I think is going to be just insanity. I can't wait for that one, but I'd be very interested to hear what you guys have to say. So get down in the comments below. Tell us what match you're most looking forward to for NXT TakeOver London. Be sure to shift the conversation over to TWitWoW, an amazing pro wrestling group on Facebook. A lot of diehard NXT fans there. I'm sure you'd feel right at home. But if groups aren't your thing, if maybe you dread the idea of nonstop notifications, which is prone to happen because some threads just get white hot, you can join our TwitWoW subreddit, a nice niche little community of just devoted TwitWoW fans. We love you guys. And there you can see all of our content and threads and create threads of your own targeted at Ashton or myself about all things pro wrestling. And guys, we will see you again for our Angelico Luchador Spotlight tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, preemptively. And we will see you then. And until then, tune in and peace out.